All right, all right. Thank you guys so much for another Tuesday Live with Joe and Jen. Today, we're going to talk about doing deals while traveling, right? What is it like? I shared something really cool on my Facebook page just this morning, talking about our summer travels, the things that we're able to do with the kiddos and how awesome this has been. I got Jen coming in right now. So what we've been able to do is take a whole trip up the East Coast, going to South Carolina. We stopped in Jersey for a night. We were in Boston for almost a week. We were in the mountains, and now we're back to upstate New York, where we're from, in Rochester. Going to be here for a wedding, see some family, do a real estate meetup, which is totally awesome. So we're excited, but this is the thing, guys, we're still able to do deals. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. If you've got any questions, drop them down in the comments, and we'll definitely make sure we get to them. So obviously, you can't do everything on your own. And it is very, very important that we say when you're starting to do creative finance, I'm going to get you in here, is you really need to start learning how to do everything. And then you're going to realize what tasks that you like and what tasks you don't like. So then you can start delegating some of the tasks that you don't like to do. Or you don't have the time to, or you could find somebody to do these tasks for you, very inexpensive. So the key is finding good help. When Jen and I went from doing this like one house a year to doing it full time, we had a coach. And the coach that we had at the time says, Jen, you can't do this all on your own. You're going to need to hire some help. And you're going to need to get somebody who's going to be able to help you do some of these things. And literally right after that Zoom, we were on our front porch. We hung up the Zoom call and we're like, all right, we need to hire some people. We knew right away that was going to be the key to helping us. Now we found folks in all different backgrounds. In the beginning, we had one guy who was a bartender at one of our favorite restaurants, and the other guy worked at McDonald's. Neither one of them had any real estate experience, but they were young, they were eager, ready to learn, and wanted to just find out if real estate investing was for them. So we hired them, we brought them on, almost like an intern position in the beginning, where we're going to do a lot of our training, and they're going to execute the things that we're training them to do. And then if we make a deal, we all get paid. And from that, we worked on how not for us to do deals, but how to train other people to do deals. And that's when we had the light bulb ideas of, if we're going to really take this to a business, we really can't do everything on our own. So we've had a big team of, a dozen people. And then we had a team where there's, 4 or 5 of us. And I will say from what I have found, it is usually you only need a very small team of people who are all on the same page. Because when you start getting into a very large group of people working for you, you are in a lot of meetings, and it's a whole other thing, right? Because now you're actually managing a lot more people. So for us, we've done them both. Right now, we're able to do this with just 2 VAs. And we're really thinking of going down to maybe just not even getting as much coverage, because we do a lot of sponsored ads on Facebook. So our VAs just right when people are messaging in, or during the day hours where they could, re-engage some old comments. So with that being the case, you really need coverage for, a handful of hours during the day. Now, a lot of VAs, which are virtual assistants, a lot of these folks work overseas. And I know a lot of virtual assistants will work for $3 to $4, $5 an hour. So if you could find, and in America, we think of that as a really low wage. And in America it is, but in some of these countries, that's a lot of money once you break down the exchange rate. And in the Philippines, the young ladies that work for us, that's what a doctor gets paid there, at $4 an hour, once you add up how much money they're making. And because of this, they're able to buy houses, they're able to build a house. And all these things they're able to do because they have this income. So when we think, $3 to $4 an hour isn't a lot of money, to somebody else that is. So if you're able to help somebody, and you're not always, going to be the perfect fit, the right one, or the first time, but when you find the right VA who works out well, they could be worth, their weight in gold, because they could take a lot of these administrative tasks off your hands, a lot of the social media that we put out there. is usually done by a VA to kind of put some of this stuff out. So we don't have to spend time doing that when there's other things we can be doing with that time. And if you give a VA who's talented an hour to do some of your pictures with some Canva stuff in there and things like that, you know, they could do wonders. And for $4 to $8 it takes to have them do all of that stuff, what can you do in 2 hours? Right. So this has been the key to success, is finding out what some of these tasks are that you can still do, but have other people do some of these other things where you could hire it out inexpensively. So our leads come in, they go through a VA, virtual assistant. They do not get on a phone call. They message them the 10 questions on our script. Pretty simple. Right. Once they go to that, they go to an acquisition team. Our acquisition team, we have one person right now in acquisitions, 1.5, because my disposition guy really likes acquisitions too. So what does that mean? Once we do a deal, we need to find a buyer for it. That's Luca. Luca likes working with sellers too, not just buyers. So we've got like kind of like a 1.5. You don't need a large team. And if you could have something very similar to that, or even less, just the VA to answer some of the questions for you and give you the leads that you've got coming in, even do Facebook posts in some of these groups like we've talked about before, and then run the script and then send them over to you. You know, it's very inexpensive to have that. So these are some of the things you could put your business on autopilot. Well, so if you do travel, like what we're able to do this month, and we're taking an entire month, we're still getting work done. We're here today, right? So we're still able to get work done. We still meet with a bunch of different of our clients that we work with in their real estate business too. And we don't miss a beat. We still have closings this week.
Just checking in on now.
Jen's checking in on one right now, and they're all over the country. So when we're in New York, they just
everything's virtual. I think that's really cool too, especially with the TC company that we're using. We can chat more about that as well. If you're looking for some help, but they have a portal online, everything's like updated frequently. So it just takes a lot of stress and questions and a lot of the back and forth. There's still some back and forth, obviously, if you've done any sort of real estate transaction.
What's a TC company for some of these folks who might not know what that means?
Transaction coordinator company. Yeah. So if you are buying or selling real estate, or even assigning the contract, you want to have some help with that. Maybe, I don't know. You recommend them walking through their first one to like have an idea?
I would definitely do. When you're going to write your very first deal, and you have to take it through the attorneys and do all of that, it's worth you learning how to do a lot of these things. But if you're going to start doing deals more often, there are what's called a transaction coordinator. And that transaction coordinator is the liaison between you and all the attorneys. And so what they're going to do is, I write a deal, have my seller sign the purchase and sale agreement. I reach out to my TC company. So I've got a deal in Tennessee. I'm going to send them the paperwork, give them all the information about the seller, give them a mortgage statement, all of these things. They find the attorney to use in Tennessee for us. They submit the paperwork to that attorney who they've already used and preferred to use in Tennessee. They go through the entire closing. They're going to give it, not the entire closing, but they give us the updates of how everything's coming along, if they need anything, and they stay on top of the attorneys. Because if any of you have closed a real estate deal before, if you just throw the deal to the attorney and just say, okay, guys, close it whenever, it will sit in somebody's desk and they'll never touch it because they're busy. So you want somebody who's going to constantly check in with the attorney's office to see the progress of the closing, make sure everything's staying on course. They do all of that for you. And they have a really easy portal, a lot of these folks, that will, you could just check without having me call their office to find out what's going on. I just go on online. I see exactly, hey, they have it closed. It's scheduled to close Friday, 2:00. Everything looks great. So, and it's good because they help cross all the T's, dot the I's. So that's what we've used too. So we had one that we had employed in-house, and then she was working with us part-time. And then when it got to be kind of too much for her, we actually found through one of our groups that we're part of, a guy who just does this, and it's his company. So it's a subscription based where you've got to pay whether you do closings or not. But however, there's going to be a lot of other ones out there too, who are fantastic. So I would say we're going to do an interview with them coming up in the next few weeks. His name is David Olds. If you're not already following him on Instagram, he is a real deal. He's a great investor. He runs this transaction coordinator company as well. And when an investor runs this company, this is why so many things get done the right way, because he looks at it through both eyes. So having a good team around you doesn't mean you have to have them all employed by you. You could definitely outsource a lot of things, right? A VA overseas, you're just sending them money.
And then another tip I wanted to give, because we first implemented it last year, was so we have a PO box up here in Rochester where we receive all of our business mailings. So while I was gone, I had one of our employees go and check that weekly. And then since we've now moved to Florida, I had to hire some help just to go check it weekly still, because I just had a lot of mail going there. And if you have different LLCs and land trusts, like it's a lot to try to transfer, and the mail company wasn't exactly easy on that. So I just have her scan all of the mail every week. I spend $25 a week for her to be able to do that. And then she just gave me these huge portfolios. She's kept every piece of mail since we left a year ago, all organized by property. And then she emails that to me. And then weekly I can go through, because some of the paper trails that I still get, we have some properties in rural areas. So as much as we try to do things digitally, they're still like backwoods, paper check. We don't collect things online. So I still have to send some checks in from time to time. So there are ways around it. It might cost you a little bit of money, but if you find trustworthy people with the power of the internet, she just, like I said, scans it all in. And then I just created a separate email to make life easier too. So I just call it Jen's assistant, even though I'm the assistant still at the moment. So at some point we're going to fill that role, but at least I know all the mail is there and I can keep organized as far as, you know, taxes, insurance, a water bill that still needs to get paid. And then I bill the tenant through, we use apartments.com. So there's a lot of ways to get things done. So don't let any of that, the fear, stop you, because where there's a will, there's a way, and there's somehow to get around it. So don't think that it's impossible to go travel for even just a little bit. We were only going to be gone a month. That was the original plan, but we quickly learned that we could be gone much longer with boots on the ground, trustworthy people. And like Joe said, just finding the right help. Might take a time or two to try some people out, and no harm, no foul. You know, we've definitely had people work with us for less than a week and we realized quickly it didn't work, or even a bit longer. And, you know, you just part ways and find somebody that's a better fit, because at the end of the day, it's your business and your sanity.
Great points.
Well, yeah, I just figured that was like a helpful tip, I thought, because when we first left, I was like, how are we going to do this? You know?
So what Jen means, when we first left, when we moved to Florida, because we're from upstate New York, we were to go on vacation a little over a year and a half ago. We just went for a month to get out of the cold. And then what 1 month turned into was 3 months of us
to kind of feel like what life would be like if we're snowbirds. And it's essentially what we did. So
we snowbirds so hard, we just moved.
And then the other like key player, I would say, is an amazing CPA. So your accountant. And then I got super lucky because they also had, is she considered a CPA too, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's a CPA, but she also does my books for me. So she logs into QuickBooks, and her and I go back and forth, and she'll say, hey, you still need to get me this, this, and this. So again, just staying really organized digitally on anything that pops up on the in-between. And obviously you always want to make sure you are doing all things right by Uncle Sam.
Yeah. So as scary as it sounds, when we went away from home for 1 month, was originally, we were still doing the same amount of deals when we were in Florida. And then that next month we stayed there, we did the same amount of deals. Nothing really changed.
We were like more excited. We had more energy. It was like a change of scenery. Like you could just tell like the vibe was different.
Yeah. And the third month was absolutely insanity how many deals we were doing.
Yeah.
Because that was right before we closed on Marco Island.
Yeah.
So we had so much stuff going on. It was nuts. So that's why when we went back up to New York, we realized we could do this anywhere. That's why we moved there. So then now this test is we're traveling and still be able to get work done, still be able to make deals and things like that. And
I will say, like, there's a lot more of this happening, like my little brain dump, I call it. So always have your pen and paper. I've got one in my phone notes too, but like, cause you are on the run and on the go, like you just always want to have your to-do list, your task list, like in front of you, and just make sure that you plug in what it has to happen into your Google Calendar, set alarms, set alerts. Don't assume that you can remember everything, because especially as you get busy, you just can't. You are one person. So get really good at delegating, and then also holding yourself accountable, or again, like setting those alarm clocks. if you don't have an assistant.
Google Calendar.
Yep. Game changer.
Has been a changer. Like if you don't have Google Calendar on your phone, you should. Because now like I have to ask her or look on my calendar to see what I have for the rest of the day every single time. I can't just assume when I'm done with this, I'm done for the day, because I know I have more things to do. But when I get off of this Zoom, I'm going to look at my calendar and say like, oh, I've got to do these more calls and this many more meetings. And so being organized is extremely helpful. So if you are traveling, just even have that little reminder, like, hey, you have a call in 15 minutes.
Yep.
Don't leave it to just chance, because I will tell you, you will miss more things by just doing it that way.
And simple things too is if you have a call with somebody, like put their phone number, tag them in the email, try to make sure things are confirmed, just so you're not wasting time. Because again, when you're traveling, you want to be able to go do fun things, but also like work has to get done. Asana is another program that I use a lot with especially our tech manager. I use it a little bit with the rest of the team, and I use it a ton with my personal virtual assistant. You do have to pay for it, but I don't remember how much it costs, but there might be like a free trial on it. But I was introduced to Asana from the Harpers. So Susan Harper, literally Asana her entire life. So she showed me how she does meal prepping. She did her son and daughter wedding. She had like everything like down to a T. She flies a lot. They travel a ton. And so she pulls up her Asana board. You can use the app or on the computer. And what's really great about that is you can task people. And then it'll come into your email as well. So it's just another way to kind of just keep things organized. I know we've mentioned Notion before. That's something Abby really liked. You can check out her video on YouTube when we interviewed her a while back. But again, it's just a really great task management tool to get in touch with people. We also really like, I'm pretty sure it's free, is Google Chat. We have our virtual assistants in there along with the team. So if we need to tag people really quickly, and maybe you don't want to blow up their text messages. So again, just find what works. Maybe it's WhatsApp, a Slack channel. These are all, I'm throwing out a lot of words. If you have questions, just ask, but they all serve similar purposes, but it just, really depends on your style and what you find best. But find a way to communicate with the people that are going to be helping you grow your business.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And that's really the key, guys. The big thing, get leads coming in, figure out who's going to talk to those leads. Right. Give you guys the good stuff to look at. And
the cool thing was, where were we? Were we in Georgia when we got the text that our acquisitionist Lexi locked up the deal in Alabama? So like, that's a really great feeling too, is now, we were in-house for so long with those two, and Joe really sat, shoulder to shoulder. And so now we're off and driving in just a few hours. She's texting us, letting us know she was able to talk to the seller, write up the contract, and get it all done. So really nice to be able to do that virtually as well.
And we know a lot of other investors, guys, who do this with a very small team. So you don't need a big team. You don't need 10 people, 20 people working for you. A handful of people can do all of these things or less. So in the beginning, you're going to probably do a lot of it yourself, because it's good. Because when you're training somebody how to replace you, you're going to want to know what to tell them to do, right? So when we were training our virtual assistants, we knew how to teach them because we were already doing these things ourselves. Yeah. So that transition came easy. If I didn't know what I was going to do, it'd be a very hard time teaching these people. So a lot of times when we work with clients, we like to teach you the exact process and the way to stick to that. So then when you're going to then replace yourself, hopefully in a short time on some of these tasks, it might be a little longer till you have your assistant lock up a deal for you, get the contract signed, but it took her 7 months.
Mm-hmm. You also didn't leave her sooner than that either, though, really.
What do you mean?
Like you didn't leave.
Oh, I could have thrown her out of the nest earlier, but she was sitting so close to me, it was easy for her not to. I would just say, okay, here, how to write it up and all this, but I would look at the deals. Now she's able to do it all herself.
Yeah. And then also it just popped in my head, like how we got here was, a lot of hard work and maybe some sacrifices. And I don't know why it popped in my head, but so 3 years ago, being COVID, we spent our anniversary like on a little beach here in Rochester, New York, not like a Florida beach at all, but still it was better than being in our four walls. And this guy spent the whole time talking to attorneys.
I know, it was two
No, that was my birthday. So then on my birthday, which is 2 weeks later, he spent time on another beach talking and training to our acquisitionists. So obviously I'm not mad about it, but I'm sharing that there are some sacrifices. So I was like, you can work. It's my birthday. My sister's here. So he took one for the team that day, and, just little sacrifices truly pay off. So while other people are off at barbecues and partying and just seems like they're having the time of their lives, and you just like, gosh, like I'm just spending so much time like working, it will pay off if you don't quit. And if you stay consistent and you just put your nose to the grindstone, like they say, and find how to work smarter, not harder, but also putting in the work. That's how people get to where they're at. And I think that sometimes we forget that we want the easy button. We want to order on Amazon and get it the next day. And it's just not the case, right? So it's going to take a little time, especially if you're new, because I see some new faces here in the creative finance world. And I think that, it's really important to know that it does take some time to understand the concepts, but the best piece of advice is the messy, massive action that you're going to take to be able to travel. And maybe your time won't be 3 years from now. Maybe it will be, in 6 to 9 months. It's as fast and as hard as you can go. It just depends on, how much time you can dedicate to it too. Because I think that's something that people fail to talk about, like the hard things, the sacrifices that they do make.
Well, and I think that's true, because she talks about what that was like 3 years ago, but we could back it up to just last night dinner. We are sitting down in Rochester. We take the kids, 4 of us go to dinner. We're sitting in a nice restaurant.
That's like what happened last night.
And our coach that we paid money to, called Jenn during dinner, just as the waitress comes over. Jenn never, ever, ever does this, and got up and excused herself from the table and went outside and took that phone call.
Well, when he calls, you answer.
So it's just the small differences, guys, I would think. And we don't make a habit of that.
No.
But on a rare occasion,
I
when something
asked
like
him
that.
a question and he was responding to me.
So this is why, once again, on our anniversary, that one time on the beach, yes, I was working. And on her birthday, 2 weeks later, on a very similar beach, I was working, but doing a different thing. But we knew tasks needed to get done.
Yeah. When you feel like, I always say, we burned the boats. Like, we didn't burn bridges. We love everybody we've ever worked with great relationships, but we put that, stake down. We were like, we are not going back to the 9 to 5. Like, when COVID hit and we decided to do this full time, like, we knew it was going to take a lot. And I don't know if you follow Grant Cardone, Elena Cardone. She wrote a book. She makes some really good points. I can't say it's the best book in the world, but there are some really great points that she makes about her and Grant and some of the sacrifices they made, especially in 2008 when the market crashed, and how they had to really change a lot of ways. And so I found that inspiring, because I kind of felt like that was us, in the sense of, your life changed. You walk away from a steady income and now you're walking into the unknown, which can be super scary. Even though I was really excited and like ready for it, I know he was more like, he was the breadwinner. He was the one who went to work day and night. And that was how we were able to start buying some properties, but we knew that this was the way out. So
it was also how we were paying our mortgage, our car payments, our gas, cell phone bills, cable, internet, going out to dinner, eating is kind of fun. I've gotten accustomed to doing that a lot. So, that's what that income was providing. So to walk away from that, she was the one, she caught it way before I did. She was like, okay, they closed New York. COVID just started. You're not going back. And this is like, the curve is going to flatten. We're supposed to go back to work in like 3 weeks, whatever it was. I'm like, no, I'll be going back to work. And it's like 4 weeks later, I'm testing out video equipment and I still have the video. I'm like, I guess I'm not going back to work anymore. And she's like, yeah, you're not going back.
And that's when we really just fell in love with social media, because you can reach, I realized, so many people. I couldn't go out and meet them in real life, in person. Like, everything was shut down up here in New York. And we did like a couple meetups outside with other investors. But as far as like reaching the masses, like, our phones were it. And if you kind of take that intensity, even though everything's open today, like, use that same energy and really understand that the power of our phones and properly using Facebook and social media, like, you could reach so many people that really need your help right now. You just need to tell them how you can help them, the situations that they might be in. And that's something to this day, like, I really, truly believe, sometimes it scrolls across at the right moment. The right person will hear you when you speak. You just have to be very vocal about it and make sure that you're going live and taking videos and sharing posts, and not just hiding behind a I buy house stock photo, because at the end of the day, that's what everybody else does. So you need to stand out.
And I'll be honest with you guys, when it comes to like the house numbers and all that, that was generally always like kind of like my realm.
Like deal analyzing.
But when it came to anything branding and social media, I was awful. And she was the mastermind behind all of those things. She was the
reluctant at first. You weren't.
I didn't even have Facebook on my phone. Like I had an account, but I didn't even have the app.
And now you're better at Facebook than I am, I think, sometimes.
Well, you taught me well, and I listen to what you taught me, and I do what you say, and it works.
Yeah.
But it's really just that easy, guys. And if it wasn't for those connections that we were able to make online with so many great people, now that we've met a ton of these folks in person, real life, genuine friendship, business connections, a lot of amazing things from Facebook. So we take it for granted, but there's tens and tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars you can make on Facebook alone.
Oh yeah.
Just from the connections and people like, this is why we love it. This is why we talk so highly about it. And everything's got its plus and minus, but what our coach tells us is don't be a consumer of social media, produce it. So
be the creator,
not a consumer.
Yep.
So this is where we try to focus on making some content and letting it do what it's supposed to do, right? So the connections, and that's where we really find a ton of value. So I'm not taking any credit for that. When she's like, we're going live, I thought she was crazy, and she was right. And we would go live every single week. It was in our Google Calendar.
Right.
I still get the notifications, actually.
No, I don't. It's the iPhone calendar. I don't know how to fix that. But, and I felt too, like that sense of like, if you put it in the calendar, you hold yourself responsible to it. If you say like, oh yeah, I'll get to it, you don't get to it. So if you treat your business like a business and not a hobby, like that switch really needs to happen. If you are really, truly ready, then you will see more deals coming your way if you consistently are holding yourself accountable. And I think that's one of the hardest parts too about being an entrepreneur is no one's looking over your shoulder. You have to really take full control and responsibility for that. And it just comes down to how badly do you want it?
Absolutely. We started doing our podcast with you guys.
Hey, you started this.
I started doing this.
I was like, why are you doing this? And here we are over a year later.
Yeah. So, but what happened is you'll see many of the interviews that we do on here, because we do this with each other too. I love coming on here live talking, but we also bring on some folks we're going to interview. And if you didn't hear already, August 8th, we're interviewing Ron LeGrand live in here. And if you don't know who Ron LeGrand is, look him up. He is the legend. They call him the godfather of real estate. He was he was the first coach. And still to this day, I still listen to him talking about real estate stuff. Absolutely amazing. He's been doing it for over 40 years. And there's probably not many people in the business, if anybody, who's better.
Yeah, and having dinner with him in Tampa, I know I've told the story before, but he sits there, he pulls his phone out, and he's got a lead that he's all excited about. And it's like 8:00 at night, but here he is all fired up because he's got a terms deal in the works that his guy's going to go take a look at. So I
look over and he's talking to Jenn because they sit next to each other. And he's like, look at this lead. Ron's almost 80 years old.
Yeah.
And he's like, look at this lead I have. They're open to seller financing. We're going to go to the house and make this deal. I'm like, at 80 years, he flew there on his private jet.
Yeah.
Okay. He's excited about making a real estate deal. Okay. This is the kind of guy he is. So he enjoys it. So we're going to have him on here August 8th. So if you've got any questions, that would be the day to bring some great ones.
Yeah, he's a hoot.
And he is a hoot. Very awesome guy. Super honored to have him on here. Also too, guys, if you don't know already, 2 days from now, our Bigger Pockets episode drops live. So super excited about that. Give that a listen.
Yeah. The real estate podcast.
The real estate podcast. So we are going to be talking just more about this fun stuff, right? We love real estate. We love talking about it. We love doing it, sharing it, teaching others what we do, right? So we're honored to be on there too. So super excited for that.
Yeah, really just like hit the angle of how we can do this, travel, be parents, homeschool. And again, I was a teacher and he was in the car business. So we didn't have any formal real estate education other than what we've personally spent on coaches and mentoring and stuff like that. But
and I got to say,
anybody can do it.
And I'm going to call nicely. And I'm going to go to another level you guys haven't heard about. We have zero help when we do this. We don't have family that helps. Our families don't live close to us. We don't have friends that are over every single weekend watching our kids or doing this. Like our kids come to our real estate meetups because we don't have babysitters.
And even when we try to get them, they bail on us.
They cancel 2 hours before it. But then also too, our kids are a part of it and they actually enjoy it. Like when I ask our kids, like, we want to continue to buy houses with you guys because that's what we love to do.
Yeah. So if you do have children, don't feel like, oh, I have to wait. Like they just explain things to them. Even, 3 years ago, my son couldn't read yet. We'd put a colored note on the door. So, read, don't knock, we're going live or recording. And they understood that. And then we celebrated by being able to go get ice cream or whatnot. And then last year it was take them to Disney World. So we really involved them in why we do what we do, how we help other people. And I just feel too that, it's such a beautiful thing to be able to do is to share with your children how you're able to help others and make money and spend more time together. So that's really what I think I'm hoping the episode that comes across in it.
Yeah. So you really just, if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it all on your own. So learn how to do these things. Find somebody who could help you do some of the other things that you could get off your desk, especially some of the easy tasks. What our coaches always said is you want to focus on, income producing tasks. So any tasks that you are working on, if they're not income producing, you should try to be focusing on those things. And all of the things that you could be doing, like chasing down lawyers and finding out, did they get the title report back? Yeah. Oh, let me check. And 2 hours later, and I'm still going back and forth on that. Mm-hmm. Those are 2 hours I could spend doing so many other things. So we even kind of dial back to, guys, who mows your lawn? Is it you? I hope not. Right? Do you have somebody that comes and cleans the house once a week, once every other week, just to kind of get some of that burden off of you?
Instacart, if you're not doing that, I know it's a little bit extra money, but the time that you're not walking the grocery store or trying to figure it all out or do meal prep services, like all those little ways to buy back your time. Try to figure out like your hourly worth. Do you remember that equation? I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Figure out what it is that you want to make per year. Divide that by how many hours a week that you would have to work in order to get that. So if you figure that your hourly worth, if you want to make $1,000 or $1 million, I believe it's what, $2,000 an hour. So if I want to make $1 million a year, and if I'm working on a task that pays less than that, I could pay somebody else less than to do that, and I pay that. Mm-hmm. So one of our best coaches, she told us, she's like, I have somebody who cleans my house. I have somebody who does my laundry. I have somebody who does my grocery shopping. I have somebody who does all the landscaping, pool, all of the things, because the only thing that she focuses on is either doing her work, which is all income producing, or spending time with her family or doing off things. So you don't want to spend 4 hours every day doing laundry, cleaning the kitchen, got to clean the bathrooms, got to clean out the yard and do all that stuff. When, you could pay other people to do that, as long as you have things that you could do within that hour. So what we've always done was, if we were going to hire somebody to go do something and the guys are out there doing the lawn for 2 hours, that doesn't mean I'm just putting my feet up. Usually I'm still working during that time. And that's why, we're able to do that. So just finding a way to, like Jen said, buy back your time.
Yeah. And if you have trouble, like even understanding like, oh, I could never, then get the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. He talks a lot about our zone of genius, and he really explains like why we'll choose to stand to go do the dishes instead of going to make those seller calls. Because guess what? Those dishes will get done eventually. You're not going to let them sit forever. But if you don't make that seller call, you can miss your opportunity to put a lot of money in your pocket and help somebody out of a really crappy situation at that.
And that one deal could be the deal that changes everything.
Yep.
All right. So I never take it for granted that the next seller that comes into us and reaches out to us with a property they have for sale, that could be $100,000 check. It could be way more. It could be zero. We don't know, but I treat it every one as such.
Yeah.
So I want to give my focus to that. And one of the folks that we actually hired and we trained so well, her desire was eventually for her to quit her job and her husband to quit his job, and then to both do this full time. And so she said, I'll work for you guys for free if you could teach me. We said, no, we'll still pay you. So this is how it works. So then we paid her. She was able to quit her job as an emergency room nurse, started getting really good at doing this. And I've told her for a long time, you should start doing this on your own, but she wanted to bring her husband home, brings her husband home. Now they're doing this both full time. Right. And what she told me, the one thing that I always loved about her, I was like, how are you able to do this job knowing that you've got two little ones at home, a husband who's busy all the time working, and you have a job working 12 hours as a nurse. And she's like, there's plenty of times when the dishes need to get done and they're piled up in the kitchen, but I'm going to make these couple seller calls first and then go do that. And she's like, yeah, the dishes are piled up, but I'll get to them. She was sometimes where the kids were, she said she would literally have to lock herself in the bathroom at times.
Just to finish the call.
To finish the call.
But it built some seller rapport that, oh, that's just my daughter, it's dinner time. So people are human too. And so don't forget that. Like, I think sometimes we try to be so like, stuffy almost of like, I have to be so professional. And yes, you want to be professional, but like be a human too, because people relate to that. And again, a lot of times we find that people love that we're the mom and pop and not some big, investment firm conglomerate that's just coming to buy all the houses in the area.
So if you're on a call with a seller and the dog starts barking in the background, kids start screaming, I just tell them, I tell them straight up, listen, if you hear any screaming in the background, I got my 8-year-old and 10-year-old.
You did it earlier. I had a baby. I was watching our old babysitter's baby, and she's 4 months old. So
and I was on a call, and I was like,
crying going on.
I was like, if you hear any screaming, that's okay. I've got a 4-month-old baby here, and we're watching her right now. I got my kids here too. So, but that's how you kind of get through that. So don't try to always be too perfect. Just relax and enjoy the process. Make it fun, and if you make it fun, that's when you're going to start getting the results you want. Don't just focus on, I got to get a deal. Focus on almost opposite. And one of my friends who's a very good wholesaler said to me, he's like, every time I talk to somebody and I got a no, he's like, I was excited. I was like, wow, you're weird. You got excited? He's like, yeah, because I knew every time I heard a no, I was that much closer to hearing a yes. And so he was going out like, hey, if you say no, that's okay. If it doesn't work for you, and then on to the next one. And now he's doing 7 figures a year, and doing very well. And he is 25 years old. Yeah. So 25 years old.
Oh, baby.
We interviewed him on here. Nick Camarada. He's a very good friend of ours down in Tampa. But if you listen to his story, guys, and you should listen to that one, extremely awesome. He went from moving down from up north to Tampa, not knowing anybody. And it's like, I'm going to be an investor. He started off with 10 grand that he had saved. He said he had $600 left in his checking account. And then he finally made his first deal and got a huge check. And then he had proof of concept and went on and did well. So listen to that one. It was really good.
Yep. So, I don't know if you talked about anything about the, what our day looks like in the beginning.
I didn't.
So I did want to mention, so as we're traveling, one thing we do is every morning at 9 a.m., we do hop on a Zoom. Our tech manager is in Ohio, so she does this every day regardless anyway. And then if our team is virtually, we all hop on a Zoom. We check in about any new leads that came in, any questions that came up. We have a Google Doc that I'll pull up and kind of go through the running list of what's at the attorneys, the title companies, what's closing. We'll talk to our dispo. So the gentleman, Luca, who works for us, who's finding buyers, how are we doing with this property? And then anything that's coming up throughout the day, sometimes we'll have like a 3:00 meeting if need be, or we'll just kind of have a check-in through texting, or they'll just give us a call. Awesome. Yeah. Our girl is where's Abby? Cleveland? Yeah. She's in Cleveland.
Yep.
So it's just utilizing technology for all the right reasons and just staying consistent with it. Every day we all just hop on. We don't require the cameras just in case people just roll out of bed. But they are, ready to rock. And again, the CRM we use is really handy to be able to hop on anywhere from our phones or computers. So we have a link for that if you are ever interested in the REI software. They have been incredible. It's very compatible with Facebook, which we really enjoy with Go High Level.
So that is the CRM that we use, where all of our sellers, we put them all into one spot. It's super easy to use. They have your desktop version, they have an app version, which is right here. So anywhere I could look at every seller that we have, every conversation. I can call them through this app. It records every phone call. So what I love about that is if I'm on the beach, like Joe can be at times, and I'm having to make that call, and they told me the price of the home they wanted, they told me the down payment, they told me how long they let me finance it for, and maybe Joe just forgot what they said because I didn't have my notebook because I was on the beach. I could just go back, pull up the recording, and listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love that. Same thing goes when we have our team who are on the phone calls. These are great for training. Did you hear on this phone call? This is where we should have went right versus left. We could use them as training experiences too. So that's why that's always really, really awesome. And it gives a way to automatically follow up with these people. I think if you use our code, you get our exact CRM. So Abby, who lives in Cleveland, she came to us wanting to be in our coaching program over 3 years ago. Once we told her how much it cost, she says, I'm a high school student. I don't have that kind of money. I said, well, what are you going to do when you graduate high school? She said, I'm going to be a real estate investor. I said, well, then why don't you just come work for us? So she graduates school in June. 2 or 3 days later, if you hear a siren, it's not us. We're not surrounded. It's a fire truck or the fire department's outside. So see, real live stuff happens. So either way, she starts with us. She does a handful of deals by the time she's 20. But where she got really good was all this tech stuff. So we moved her into our tech department where now she is able to work virtually and help on all this crazy stuff for us. So just really cool how you get to have people on your team that will go to different spots too and really help you out. So
I was gonna say, last week we had our former students, Mike and Jay, on, and they covered SOPs, which are standard operating procedures. I like to call Jay the queen of SOPs because she's fantastic. And I'm bringing it up because Abby is going to go on a vacation. She's a huge Taylor Swift fan. So she's traveling to California.
She's a Swiftie.
I'm a little nervous because I am so grateful for her because like I'll just forward any question I have, like a tech problem, and she just takes care of it. It's like magic to me. And so I'm like, hey, can you just, any of these things I'm forwarding you from time to time, can you make like a little SOP? So when I'm SOS, like, you can help me out here. So it's really important to be documenting things. So if you are starting this and you're starting to talk to sellers or you're creating your own little ways of doing things, just take a few minutes and just write it down. Take 5 minutes and just kind of what step 1 through 10 was really quickly, so that if and when, which you will, if you're going to do this business full time, hire somebody, it'll be really easy for you to train someone else. And then if that person ends up leaving, then you now have a document to be able to train. And Jay, I think, went over all of that last week and did a really great job. And she's got some amazing templates too. So definitely check that out.
Oh, how awesome.
Oh, Ron. That's so amazing.
Yeah, he's not traveling as much as he used to, Tony. So if you guys get a chance to see him and hang out with him,
get a picture with him.
Definitely get a picture. That's so awesome. Yeah, he still does some traveling, but like he used to travel all the time, but he's cut back a little bit. The guy's almost 80.
Yeah, he just does what he wants to do. So
I would say he doesn't have to do whatever.
He want to go up there. So
yeah.
But yeah, ask him all the questions. He's full of answers, that's for sure. We sat there picking his brain all night. I'm sure he was.
Oh, he loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it. So guys, these are the things. Nothing too crazy. It's not overly complicated. If you keep it simple and don't go, and this is where I always say too, if you're going to be having somebody work for you, if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Don't freak out and think it's the end of the world, because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Here's the one thing, if I have to say, is be careful when you bring on somebody who's a brother, a sister, a family member, because you don't want them to not work out. And then, Christmas time, you all start feeling funny or something like that, looking at each other. And you shouldn't. But once again, I make it very clear, like, hey, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, please just tell me, we'll leave as friends. And I have no issues with that either. Because
just lay out clear expectations. Yeah, I think as long as you're very open about this is what I expect and this is what has to happen, and if you don't like it or it's not working, like, communication is huge and key. So make sure you do that. And then yes, all of these recordings are posted onto YouTube with the video, and then we also have a podcast. So if you want to go to Spotify or Apple, you'll see Creative Finance Playbook. We are uploading all of our episodes here as we continue to go. So if you want to give us a follow there, please do. And we're slowly growing that little guy that just happened.
Well, come after Bigger Pockets launches tomorrow. That thing's going to be going out of control. They say that when Bigger Pockets, when your episode gets launched, they said expect a few thousand messages.
And somebody left his phone number.
So I might be getting a few calls too.
This will be interesting. My sister's getting married, so I might have to take your phone and like hide it, so you're not like over there talking to everybody.
Well, I know, because her sister's getting married Saturday and the episode drops Thursday, so
that'll be good though.
And then somebody's got a birthday.
Big 4-2 next
Monday
Tuesday.
Or Tuesday. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna go over 42 things we've learned about real estate. So I'm compiling the list right now.
Good. That's gonna be exciting.
Either way, any other last minute questions? Otherwise, we'll probably wrap this up and we'll be back next week. So nice to see you guys.
Cool. All right. Well, the next time you get to see us, we're going to spend a birthday together.
Yeah. And if you love what you're hearing, but you want some more coaching, guys, book a call with us. We can get into how we do offer private client, but we also have a small group coaching. I don't know how many spots will be left after this bigger Pockets podcast drops, as we are going to keep it a small group. So if you want in on that, message us sooner than later. Otherwise, we will see you guys soon and go do some deals.
See you guys.